Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are very pleased to share with you Women in Leadership in the Industry, a wonderful panel, and it's curated by WIH. So WIH, if you had heard yesterday with Keith on our panel, WIH stands for Women in Hotels. We are a global not-for-profit organization and best-in-class community where all women cross-segment across the hospitality industry are welcome to join. And we believe that together we are stronger. We believe in collaboration with all colleagues and that together we can raise the game and create an industry that is more diverse and inclusive. So without further ado, I am thrilled to present to you three formidable and inspiring women. So let me start off and let me give you their not full, but their bios so that you truly understand their experience. So Dr. Bashara Al-Majed, as a professor of law at Kuwait University, Dr. Bashara Al-Majed is a strong believer in constitutional rights and works to inspire the next generation of lawmakers and empower women in the Middle East. She is interested in legal economic policymaking and solutions to diversifying the economy away from oil. Dr. Bashara holds a doctorate in contract law and 3 LLMs in contract law, public law, oil contracts, and business law. And as I would term her, she is the Kuwaiti RBG. Hala Matar Choufani. Hala Matar Choufani is the president for HVS, Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. She has advised on more than 3,500 hospitality mixed-use projects in the last 17 years across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. In addition to being a board member of HVS Global, Hala sits on the boards of Harvard Business School Club, of the GCC, AHIC, and was born in Beirut, lived and worked in several cities across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and is a mother of 3. Lynn Schumann. Lynn Schumann is an experienced journalist and media professional. Before joining LinkedIn, she worked for 7 years at Al Arabiya News Channel as a business news anchor and reporter. During her work there, Lynn covered business stories and interviewed top business leaders and decision makers across the Middle East and North Africa, and also brings with her experience in economic policy and development, having previously worked at the World Bank office in Beirut. Lynn obtained her degree in economics from the American University of Beirut. So please join me in welcoming our 3 incredible panelists. Dr. Bashara, Hala, Lynn, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. So what I thought, Dr. Bashara, do you wish to do the honor and set the stage for our audience in regards to regional development and what opportunities and breakthroughs have occurred?
Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for this wonderful introduction, and thank you for having me here today. Well, first of all, I'm very pleased and honored to be with this wonderful panel to discuss a case which is very dear to my heart. All of you, as you know, that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, if I'm speaking very general, the United Nations Sustainable Goal number 5 emphasize on gender equality and empowerment for women and girls. And also we have the United Nations World Tourism Organization, which says that the female entrepreneurs, particularly in the tourism industry, is going more than 50%. We have also now policies and changes that's happening in the Middle East, and I'm giving Saudi Arabia as an example. Saudi Arabia pillars to 2030 pillars is to increase female participants in the labor market. And personally, I saw that when I visited Saudi recently in the Ministry of Tourism. The amount of women empowerment and females that I saw, they're leading the whole ministry and designing everything, was just great to see. And also, just to give some figures and facts, McKinsey Global Institute reported that 12 trillion could be added to the global GDP by the 2025 by achieving women equality. So I think, talking very general, it is very important case, and it's very important, and it's happening now in the Middle East. So, and we are all part of it, and we need to just carry on.
Wonderful. Thank you for setting the stage there. And Lynn, I believe you have some wonderful statistics to give background to women representation.
Yeah, so when we talk about, being culturally more aware now of the role that women are playing in the workforce in general, there has been a lot of improvement, of course, be it in the change of rhetoric, right, and the reorganization of the workflow across the world, and that is due to different things, mainly evolution, and also, several external factors, several movements, like the Me Too, like different, stories that we hear. So more and more talk about women in the workforce, more and more talk about equality. But some sobering news or some sobering data show us that women are still underrepresented. I would, use some numbers from LinkedIn. Those numbers are from 2019, and they concern, the workforce in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But they are not super fresh, but they give us, they highlight on one important truth. Maybe that should be, one of the starting points of the strat is that we still are not equally represented in the labor force, in the workforce across sectors, and hospitality is, of course, one of them. The cultural awareness part is very important, and women consider it super important. And by that, we mean how much they put weight on colleagues and on companies supporting them. So the same study of LinkedIn from LinkedIn says that around 50% of the women who are surveyed consider the support, the cultural support that they have from their employer and from their colleague very important, versus around 40% of their male counterparts. So here is, the critical or the relevance of this issue. And of course, we hear often, I personally hear often, whenever I share something about a woman, like chat on women, equality in the labor force, some would tell me, aren't you guys talking about this too much? So those numbers are maybe, the biggest arguments, like it's not too much yet. So I'm happy this conversation is going forward.
Yes. No, thank you for that. And Hala, do you wish to add, what cultural experience and lessons have you learned in becoming a woman in leadership? And perhaps you give the audience a background of just just how cross-cultural you are and your experience within the industry.
Sure, Lisa, happy to do so. And I think, with hearing what Dr. Bashair and Lynn have shared with us, the positive is that we're moving in the right direction. And this is where it ties back to what Lynn mentioned in terms of the culture. As you introduced me earlier on, I've been traveling across the world for the last 22 years. So I have been in different situations and obviously in different cultures. And with that, there has been opportunities, but challenges. I don't want to underestimate, the challenges and the muscles you build along the way. But I also want to say that it has been extremely rewarding. And, while I don't have the statistics, but the fact that the first time I participated in something similar, be it a conference in this part of the world, there were very few women there. And at the moment, there's plenty of them and very successful. And this is, I think I can't even hide my excitement. I'm trying, but this is really very exciting to see that we are basically able to enter the workforce and to shine and to support other women. Speaking of the cultural differences, again, the way I have looked at it, not necessarily being a challenge, but really an opportunity to learn. And, this diversity just grows you as an individual, be it male or female. I've traveled the world with certain perceptions, obviously, and we were brought up also in cultures to believe certain elements, which along the way, you also have to work on yourself to break those misconceptions, I would say. So an element of it also with meeting those challenges is to really understand and staying true to yourself. I must say, I've always had a goal in terms of, I believe that I will succeed and I will just adapt and build a lot of muscles along the way. But, I think what I'm trying to say is that from a cultural perspective, this is just one challenge. There are other challenges. But then if we look at what the society today, the government and the companies are doing to support women, it's probably it's much better for the newer generation. And we should work stronger together to make sure that we're building not just the structure, which comes to policies. I totally get it. This is extremely important. But I'm talking more from the angle of the human and women confidence that I think is extremely important as well.
Yes, no, very much so. And actually, whilst you're on the point, do you wish to also discuss being a mother as well as a career woman? And how has that impacted? And what can you share with the audience in terms of lessons and perhaps advice?
Thank you, Lisa. You've opened an interesting window, because I like not always to appear in a very business context, basically to say that I am a mother of 3 and this is another full-time job. And it does, again, require, and I don't want to make it sound simple, because I know people are tuning in, and I'm optimist by nature, simply because I believe that challenges are turned into opportunity, but I didn't want to compromise. So I didn't want to compromise on being able to have a family. Equally, I didn't want to compromise to pursuing my career. So let me start off by saying definitely the company I'm working for, but also the family that is behind me, really helped me succeed in being able to maintain this balance. So I don't want to discredit that, because this is extremely important. And for all women out there, you need those backbones, in place. But then as well, it is also about overcoming what many women out there feel, the pressure of just perfecting every single aspect of our life, of that guilt. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about that at the moment, but as a mom, I had to really work on overcoming the guilt feeling. Am I needed at home? Am I needed outside? Something told me they're going to be proud of me. Now they're much older, and I know they are. But there were times that I really had to think through what is this fine line between making sure that I can attend to what they need, and I also can deliver in a professional capacity. But it is both rewarding, extremely rewarding. I wouldn't do anything differently along the way. It hasn't been easy. But today I feel definitely, now that my daughter is 12 years old, she's ready. Certain things that I needed back in the days, that today I have been able also to role model. And then with the support of everything that is happening along the side, this is great. I know Lynn is nodding there, so perhaps Lynn.
I just want to comment on this, because sessions like these and conversations and articles and women also in power, they're giving the world something special, right? Because now our role models, of course, they're always personal, right? But now we have more opportunities to learn from role models that are, maybe away or in another maybe generation or era. We were not able to, hear their stories. And what is really important here is the story, like Hala's stories, for instance, to be available for other women, and to basically demonstrate 2 things. About role models and about actually women who made it. So 2 things. 1, proving the blueprint, right? So whatever you leave in the industry. So going in a certain position or delivering in a certain role and leaving it in a better shape. That's 1,
yes.
Blueprint. And 2, somehow sobering up the ideal idea of balancing between personal and professional life. So we need to hear stories about the huge compromise and the big, discomfort or uncomfortable feeling that women have while they, oscillate between, periods in their lives where professional or their career is the priority, and then at some point they kind of, lower the beat so they can, focus on their personal life, etc. So this kind of real approach is very important for all women to have. And that's also why having role models and stories out there is very important to inspire and to, so we can have a more concrete sense of what actually happens with women.
Yes. No, and it's a very
if
good.
I could add possibly to that.
Yes, Dr. Bashar.
I find it really challenging, to be honest, as a Middle Eastern woman and in the field of law. I'm a professor of law. It is not easy, I must say, for many reasons. Not only because I'm from the Middle East or I work in the Middle East, but I studied abroad. I studied in England and I studied in France. It is very challenging because I find it sometimes because you're a woman, you have to do a little bit extra all the time just to prove the point. I find it this myself. I don't know about you ladies, but it's always this little extra effort that I have to do to prove that I am serious. Otherwise, I could be in the fashion industry or something like that. That's the typical stereotype. But trying to prove that I am a serious professor in the field of law and reform and economy, I find it, to be honest, not easy, challenging. Plus, balancing, as Hala said, the personal life with the professional life, and be nice all the time to everyone. It's not easy, and we get this stereotype, by the way, that we're always emotional. Anything you do, it's because you're a lady. That could be interpreted as an emotional thing or emotional action straight away,
yes.
Which is I don't like. And I spoke in TED Talk about it a couple of months ago, like men and women can be both emotional. So it's not only women that can be emotional, but I find women are giving like tremendous and amazing examples around us in the Middle East and around the world. And I think now it's going, yes, as Lynn said, it's a very exhausted topic when we say women empowerment, but we're getting there and we're achieving things. If you know what I mean, it's not, we exhaust the topic, but we're moving forward, if you know what I mean. And we have to do that. We have to do this little extra.
Yeah. But to that point, and then I'll come to you, Hala, on language. I'm conscious. But just to finish with Dr. Bashar, what do you think, therefore, needs to be done at the local level and more globally to make those changes?
I think personally, new professions need to be introduced to the Middle Eastern women culture. Let's say, for example, studying tourism. These professions are not common if you speak 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. People won't think of studying this kind of thing in the college. They all want to study either medicine or law or marketing. But now we need to diversify the economy, and we need to introduce new fields, and we need to encourage entrepreneurship. So we need to introduce that by creating different policies, by adopting those policies and put them in the society, by giving scholarship to certain and rare professions, and try to not to say push the girls, but try to make the girls who are interested or who doesn't. By the age of 18, I wasn't 100% sure what do I want to study personally. So just to give them more opportunities and widen their scope to explore different things rather than staying in the typical balls.
Yeah, no, and it's a very good point, and it comes back to the previous one on role models, is that those coming into the industry, you need to share with them all of the opportunities and the careers within the hospitality sector, because they're not aware, because there aren't role models per se for them. So the RISE program that Keith was discussing yesterday for general managers is extremely helpful. Other programs that can actually give you that opportunity, exposure to those different career paths. So to Hala, in terms of the previous discussion of language and taking criticism and the importance of language, do you wish to touch on that?
Right, and Lisa, if you allow me, I just want to go back to a point that Dr. Bashir mentioned, because this is extremely important. And I was there 10 years ago, perhaps, where we felt, especially, and I'd assume this goes across the globe, but let's start off with being Middle Eastern, that we always needed to do a bit more, especially in the finance world, where you really need to, you have a 5-minute window to let them know that you know what you're talking about. And it's not just, and I think I'm talking the same language as Dr. Bashir, but I don't think we should continue to do that. This is the message that I wanted, hopefully, to get through this. We don't have to prove anything to anyone. When we're talking about equality, we should basically push forward with encouraging women not to feel challenged, but by themselves. And for me, this is extremely important because I know how challenging and how much it can consume your energy when you're always trying to fight a battle. So hopefully we're again moving in the right direction. And I think culturally, this is now supporting us too. So to your point, Lisa, with regards to language, and again, Dr. Bashir mentioned emotions. So I want to bring in the word emotion, emotional intelligence, because that's true. I think one of the first criticisms I've heard in the start of my career was I didn't have enough gray hair, which is fine. I was young. Now I do, but it had to do with being emotional. And, fast forward now, we talk about recruiting people with emotional intelligence. So that takes us back, okay, perhaps not too much emotions, but it's extremely important also to acknowledge the emotional state, which then brings up the whole discussion around when we're looking to hire more women in the workplace, and while we have the laws in place and companies are obviously pushing forward with that direction, I still feel we need to do two things. One, which is basically to do with the culture and the society, making sure that it's not just people within that company are actually understanding and supportive of women, but as a culture, do we support? As a society, do we support? And therefore, we can bridge some of these issues. And then when it comes to companies, my personal view is that whether it's the training, whether it's the induction, whether it's how we promote, how we give feedback, I'm not necessarily saying, and I don't want anyone to think this is favoritism, but we really need to design the way we hire, train, and grow women different to men. We respond differently, and I think there's no one that will disagree with the statement that we're different creatures. And I feel this is important because then the way we put across the message really helps support women with the confidence that they need to shine even more, and also helps them mature. So it's always here again balancing between what we feel and then obviously understanding how we feel. And there is a big role in corporations, not just to make policies and not just to do quotas. It is once somebody is on board, is the system really going to support the women to feel less scared or more confident or less criticized? And again, that there has been criticism. I think one of the biggest criticism, and I really want to bring this one up, has been from women out there, very frankly to me. Women that chose not to work, that they still don't get it. How did I travel so much and leave my kids? And I think of all criticism, that's the one that hurt me the most, because for me, this is a judgmental criticism. This is not a constructive one. I totally respect if not everyone wants to become a career woman. That's a choice. So again, to the point of mentoring and role model, and I'm so excited about Women on Hotels as a group, because this is where people can turn to. I mean, they have mixed feelings. Yeah. There is somebody that will talk to them, that will tell them, actually, 10 years ago, I felt this way, or perhaps even today I feel this way, and here's how I've dealt with it. So that, there is somebody to turn to, and we're not alone in this as we progress and as we catch up with whatever is going to work out for us.
And it's also an important part, and Lynn, I'll come to you in one sec, insofar that it's mentors for all levels, because you just alluded to that. It's not just those coming into the workforce, it's also for the senior leaders who would also like to have those colleagues to discuss with. And therefore, it's that one community. And again, that together we're stronger. To have that collaboration and that knowledge share is key. And Lynn, I know that you wish to join me.
And I was just going to build a bit about what Hala just mentioned, because she went into some concrete actions that need to be taken, and maybe also I can check some discussions here, like for instance, Emily is asking a bit for
yes.
Some concrete things. Hala mentioned a few, and also like some numbers tell us. I'm also mentioning the same report that I mentioned earlier, that in terms of entry-level people in the hospitality sector in EMEA, EMEA in this region that was surveyed and LinkedIn's report. So when it comes to entry level in hospitality, women are quite fairly compared to other sectors. But where's the story? The story is about C+ level. So, and also more sobering data would tell you that for careers that need more than 11 years experience before you cross into a leadership role, in those careers, women are almost not represented, or way less represented than men. So basically, in whatever leadership positions in the hospitality sector, women are way less present. So how should companies deal with that? Of course, HR policies are very important, and they need to be very concrete, especially in hospitality sector. In the hospitality sector, when you compare it with other sectors, there has been a couple of recommendations to the sectors, to this particular sector, that they need to be a bit more concrete in terms of what are they expecting in terms of outcome from their diversity and inclusion policy. How are they ranking in terms of priority, and who is taking ownership of those policies? For instance, in some banks or other sectors, some leaders take ownership of some goals towards integrating or having a more diverse workforce. But it's also about some concrete HR process and prerequisites, like for instance, making sure to provide to women, a good value proposition for their career. What are your plans when it comes to, parental leave, for example? How do they, how can they make sure to have a flexible working time, for instance, to be able to work-life balance for the ladies? And also, of course, a lot of work should be done, as Hala just mentioned, to fight the unconscious bias that we make. Also, Dr. Bashayr touched on that. Like, emotions should not be an accusation, right? But people, even us, have sometimes unconsciously make a bias against each other. So we should be aware of that, and companies should take action to train and to increase awareness when it comes to those biases that do not make women's or men's life easy. So those are maybe like a couple of concrete tips that companies should be using.
Yes. And also, I believe, potentially collaborate across companies for such initiatives, because just as with sustainability, this is global. This is not just for one company. And therefore, if leaders can collaborate and understand and learn from each other's best practices, then we all raise the game in this industry to everyone's benefit. Yeah. Hala, I think you wish to join in. Was there something that you wish to add in?
No, she's actually really taken those points and expanded on them, Lynn. But perhaps when we're talking about companies, again, there are a lot of policies out there, but this uncertainty and unclarity, I know from working female friends that, yes, there is a policy, but they're not necessarily sure that if they follow through the policy, they're not going to be frowned upon. So it's just making sure that beyond policies that we're making that more of a shift in the mindset around the workplace, and a shift in the society mindset. And also up to that point, I think, I go back to the fact that I have chosen to stay in my current role I've been for 17 years, but with the same company for a reason as well, is because I felt that they delivered on that promise. And it's going to be very interesting to see how in the future also females will choose companies based on those that actually addresses their needs. They make them feel they well understood and they're heard, and they have the opportunity. I know we're all hoping that one day this whole discussion is going to be behind us, but until then, there are companies out there that are definitely way ahead. And, it's perfectly fine also for women to choose companies. I mean, we have, the employers chooses the employee, and I think now it's going to become also a matter of that female choosing which company she wants to work for.
Yes, because it's important. whereby you have the opportunity, then gain the experience, and then you have the exposure. And that's the way you can go through your career. But you need all three to make it happen. So if you don't have the opportunity at the outset, it's quite difficult. But hopefully, to your point, that in a year, 2 years hence, all the companies will have raised their game and therefore look to each other to see how they can learn and improve. Dr. Bashar, what else can we do in concrete terms? Is there any advice, and also Lynn, then across other sectors, what else can we learn from, and how else can we move forward?
Wow, very, very big questions. To be honest, I think what is happening now in the Middle East in particular, and if I would emphasize on Saudi Arabia, it's evolutionally, like what's happening is just we need that kind of shakeups, if you know what I mean. In Kuwait, let's say, I'm speaking, we need to amend some laws here and there to make women work later or work more hours in the night, and these kind of discussions that I don't like. We're having like these debates every day, and we're discussing with the World Bank how we can improve them. But I think, generally speaking, firstly, education. Secondly, the education is very, very important. Just to make ladies or girls study things that they never studied before. Just push them into a different area. Try to believe in them. Try to put them in a senior positions. Let them take the lead. Let them take the media. Let them speak. I think we can achieve a lot by doing these little things. You know, it's not only. You see CEO is a man and one of the board is women, and this is the typical, and I'm talking about the Middle East. This is very typical. We need to see more CEO women. We need to empower more women. We need to position women in a different areas, such as economy, law, politics. Very, very important. Like in Kuwait, we have one female MP in the parliament, and we recently, only last month, had the first female judges. And I wrote an article in the Financial Times about that last year, that we need to have female judges, and it is important. So I think we're getting there, but we need to challenge. I totally agree with you, Hala, with what you said. But unfortunately, I find this every day, that is an everyday challenge and battle to prove a point, or to prove that you can take the lead, or you can take a serious position and you're capable. And if you do, things are not the right way always, at the end, because you're a human, not because you're a woman, if you know what I mean, or you're emotional and these kind of classic stereotypes. So I think education, speaking more in the media, which is really important, and I don't know, just to take the lead.
Yes. No, thank you for that. I'm reading some of the comments, and actually, to your point, and it works very well for you, Lynn, because one person in the audience is querying, it's difficult to raise funds and investments for their firm. What can one suggest? And actually, you've got some really good references in finance. So if you wish to explain them.
Yeah, like especially in the region, we're seeing a lot of conversations around being there for women who are planning to raise funds, because that's a very difficult conversation to have. So what we are seeing, especially here in the Middle East, the conversation. I mean, the conversation is definitely louder, but there's also a silver lining when it comes to investment and other things. I'll get into investment in a bit, but the silver lining about the women empowerment talk is basically to miss out on matching talent with certain positions, right? So if I come here and say, hey, like those 3 positions are dedicated to women, but then there is no proper candidates to fill those 3 positions. So here is a bit the tricky part of this whole rhetoric some are advocating for, and it can definitely be very, very fruitful and very fair. So to face that and to solve that, maybe we can think of being definitely more concrete in terms of what is needed to access that promotion, for instance. And we see it, especially now with the working from home arrangement, right? And when it comes to measuring productivity, it's been really a mess for most of us, right? So how should we measure productivity, and on what benchmark should I be, assessed? So there should be a conversation happening in that direction for both males and females, but for things to be very clear and for criteria to be very clear against which we will be measured in our evolution, and we will have better chances to take on senior roles. Access to finance is obviously one of the biggest hurdles that entrepreneurs in the Middle East region face, but in the GCC we have good numbers when it comes to women taking those funds, but it's obviously still very challenging, and the challenges are many. First of all, the women find it a bit difficult to be exposed or to know the tricks behind the banking sector and what is exactly needed, and to the access to investors, right? So the huge networking gap that exists, and to solve for this networking gap, or to address this networking gap, having communities, be it communities related to women leadership or other communities, those are very helpful to get the right people connected. And of course, one of the biggest recommendations that we hear is being out there. Being out there now, right? So this is a great opportunity for every woman to showcase who she is professionally, to show all her professional hats through the platforms that are out there. I would, of course, advocate for LinkedIn because it's where I work, but it's one of the platforms where we can show who we are and what are we offering, and have the conversation that matters, so we get access to either financing or maybe access to mentors that would who will be able to help us out.
Yes. No, thank you. And there are 2 wonderful queries in the chat, and I was just about to come to it, so it works quite well, which is twofold. One is, in this paradigm shift, do we see value in diversity? And let us highlight that when we're talking about diversity here, it's all underrepresented groups. And especially, I think we should bring to the fore BAME, so Black, ethnic minorities, other underrepresented groups. What can we do holistically? So to the first, I would say, and I'll just give one example, is there is actually a tangible value that we've seen, and there have been recent reports in the UK which showcase for the 350, the improvement in NOI, actually with a more diversified leadership. So that is tangible and financial. But I'd love to share with you, so Hala, Dr. Bashar, or Lynn, you wish to expand on those 2 queries. Lynn, go ahead.
I was muted. So yeah, I would just take an example that was or a set of recommendations from a PwC report that was recently done, and that highlights when we talk about diversity, and I was mentioning it a bit before, it is of course including women, but it's also including different parties from the workforce. So, and it's the message regarding the hospitality industry in specific was a note to making these efforts more concrete and more accessible to all parties that are, targeted, women or ethnic groups or other or different groups, to make the workforce inclusive. And here, the report mentions, for instance, a big improvement when it comes to hospitality companies mentioning their diversity and inclusion efforts in their reports and their code of conduct, etc. But when it comes to actual, where it stands in terms of priority, when it comes to actual benchmarking, this is what is still missing. So talking about it and launching initiatives is amazing, and conversations like those are really very cool because they're increasing awareness and because they're making us, look around each other and identify who else is interested in this topic, which is amazing. But what is really needed is the actions behind it, and also making people accountable, or making companies accountable for those goals. So setting goals is good, but what else are we doing to make sure that those groups are represented? So women or not, today we're talking about women leadership, but I think as the comments are mentioning, and this is a point I would definitely agree with, it is a bigger discussion. And because every group is special in some way, right? Like no one is here to say that women are more special than other groups. So that's the key point, I guess.
Well, you have that query as well in the chat box saying, what is our competitive advantage?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, this is a personal view, right? Of course, women and men function differently, but we should be able to have the exact same chances. And we can talk about how our female, characteristics are awesome. And also, on the other side, the male characteristics at work are amazing when it comes to, cognitive, when it comes to certain skills they have because of their biology. But at the end of the day, of course, it does matter. But what matters is what you're delivering, the conversation you're driving, what you're actually achieving on the ground, right? So this is a tricky discussion as well. And yeah, it's always a question piège, as you say in French.
Lisa, I will just add to what Lynn said, because, again, the way I look at it, there's no competitive advantage over. And to the question on diversity here, I think what we're trying to say is the more diverse and really trying to include everyone is what is going to pretty much impact positively companies. And that's when we look at the bottom line, but also societies in general. And I think, we still have a lot to do more on the inclusion and diversity, but we are already now here celebrating how far we have come as women. And then hopefully we will be part of also bringing this change when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
Yes, very well said. Very true. Dr. Bashar.
If I could just add, as Lynn said, I couldn't agree more. Speaking about it's something, and actually doing and taking the action is something. I know loads of women who speak about women empowerment every day, and they bully women when women come to the position of power, and they criticize them, so speaking about it something, and actually taking the lead and action is something. And by the way, I have noticed something, just me watching politics and not only and not necessarily all the time women supporting women. It's mainly men supporting women most of the time. And there is one statistic that I tried to find, and maybe I could post it in some file later. Yeah. It is actually proven. So it is. We need to change. It's not like women with women and men with men. This is not correct. Right. We need to convince. We need to convince people. We need to be capable. And yes, we are different. And I'm not arguing that we are not different. We could be emotional, yes, and we take things and we lead differently. We can lead. And we can get there, if you know what I mean. We don't have to do it at the same exact way that men does things, but we do things, and we're able and capable to do things and take senior positions. And speaking about reforms, there are in the Middle East many entrepreneurs now, like a massive number of women entrepreneurs are just yet borning, if you know what I mean. So I think it's really important to give this a boost. And I am not with women supporting women, because this will not take us anywhere.
Correct.
This will not take us anywhere. Everyone should support. If I convince you, you should support me. Either if I'm man or woman, but look at me in a neutral eye.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
That's the silver
Don't have an
lining.
unconscious bias, and therefore be stronger together and have there be collaboration across all colleagues.
And
Right.
I love the last point of Dr. Bashir, because she's basically saying that, I mean, it shouldn't be like personalized like this, right? And the whole discussion about women in leadership and diversity and inclusion should not be an angry discussion.
Right.
And that's often, you know, portrayed as like an angry discussion, and it should not be. I think also, I'm so sorry to bring the subject up, but I think the coronavirus, we thought we had a break for 30 minutes. You thought you didn't hear the word coronavirus, but I think the coronavirus, you know, the pandemic and the massive changes that it has introduced to the way we do work, we do business, is a big chance for people, companies, employees, and everyone, all the stakeholders, to reevaluate, right, their place at work, and also to bring in conversations like these, because we do realize that we're working completely differently. We do realize that the economic outlook is not really on our side when it comes to the next couple of months. We are dealing with huge, you know, levels of, or very high levels of uncertainty. So here, it may be a way or like an occasion for everyone to get together, not just, as Dr. Bashir said, women versus men, like literally all parts of all people from the workforce, and, you know, rethink the way forward when it comes to, you know, assuming different roles.
Absolutely. And I think it was Jeremy Rifkin yesterday said it so well, which said, we are all now coming together for a greater good. And so it does absolutely level our playing field, and therefore look for improvements. And also it increases the pace of change. We're more agile. So this is the opportunity to bring this to the fore and to move forward positively. Hala, did you wish to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing because you know, this is very interesting, and this is really a reflection of what we're going to be keeping ourselves and, you know, going forward. I don't like to use, as Lynn said, the word battle. That's why I avoided it in the beginning, because these are not battles. These are opportunities for us to impact tomorrow in a better way.
Yes. So with that, I think I'm looking at the time. I thank you all. This has been so positive, inspiring, and I'm sure many in the audience will see all three of you as incredible role models. So thank you for this. We are stronger together. Keep collaborating, keep discussing, keep an open mind. And thank you again, truly. Hala, Dr. Bashir, Lynn.
Thank you so much.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Shukran.